The local pond reflects a starry sky even during the day. In the small town of Greenwood, nestled between the gentle hills and whispering forests, there was a peculiar landmark that had always captured my imagination. The local pond. As a high school student with a penchant for the unexplained, this pond was my enigma. It was known for a singular, inexplicable characteristic. During the brightest days, when the sun was high and unyielding, the pond's surface reflected a starry sky, as if a piece of the night was trapped within its depths. My name is Stephen, and this story begins with my innocent fascination with this anomaly. The pond was a familiar place, a spot where families would picnic, and children would throw pebbles to watch the ripples distort the constellations reflected below. I, however, saw it differently. There was something about the way the stars in the water never matched the ones in the night sky, something that whispered of secrets and stories untold. My curiosity about the pond was just a part of who I was. I was never the most outgoing person. My quiet demeanor often left me on the outskirts of the bustling high school social scene. Books, not people, were my companions, and the mysteries of the universe, my passion. This story is not just about a pond or the stars it held captive. It's about the journey I took, one that led me down a path where reality blurred with the unfathomable, and where the stars gazed back with knowing eyes. It was during a class project on local landmarks that my curiosity transformed into an obsession. Tasked with uncovering the history of Greenwood's notable sites, I dove into the town archives, sifting through old newspapers and dusty records. That's when I stumbled upon something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The pond, it seemed, hadn't always been there. I found an old newspaper clipping, yellowed and brittle with age, its date marking a time several decades before my birth. The headline was bold and ominous. Mysterious pond appears overnight. Town baffled. The article detailed how, one morning, the townspeople woke to find the pond where previously there had been nothing but an empty meadow. But it was the smaller, follow-up stories that sent a chill down my spine. In the weeks following the pond's appearance, there were reports of people vanishing. A child here, an elderly man there. No connections, no explanations. Just a series of disappearances that left the town in a state of subdued panic, until they eventually stopped and were slowly forgotten. I sat there, in the quiet of the town library, feeling the weight of this discovery. It wasn't just a pond. It was a mystery, a phenomenon that had slipped through the cracks of history, unexplained and unexplored. I knew then that I needed to understand it, to uncover what lay beneath those starry reflections. My first step was to visit the pond myself, to see if I could discern anything unusual about it. I went there after school, as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the water. The pond was calm, its surface a perfect mirror to a sky that should not have been there. I watched, transfixed, as a gentle breeze stirred the water, sending ripples across the cosmos trapped beneath. The reflection remained unbroken, the stars undimmed by the setting sun. It was as if the pond existed in a perpetual state of night, oblivious to the laws of nature. That evening, I returned home with my mind racing. There was something extraordinary about the pond, something that defied logic and understanding. I needed to know more, to delve deeper into this enigma. This was the beginning of my journey, the moment when a simple curiosity turned into a quest for answers. Little did I know, this quest would take me to places darker and more profound than the starlit depths of the pond itself. My visits to the pond became frequent, almost ritualistic. I would go at different times, under different weather conditions, but the scene remained unchanged, a serene mirror reflecting a starry sky, impervious to the natural rhythms of day and night. The more I observed, the more questions surfaced. Why did it reflect stars even during the day? Why did those stars never align with any known constellations? It wasn't long before I noticed something else, something unsettling. The locals who lived near the pond, they were different. Their eyes held a distant, dreamy quality, and their conversations, when they thought no one was listening, were hushed whispers about celestial bodies and cosmic phenomena. It was as if the pond had cast a spell over them, luring them into a state of perpetual fascination with the heavens. One day, while skirting the water's edge, lost in thought, I met Mrs. Thorne. She was an elderly woman, known in Greenwood as a recluse with a mind sharp as a tack, but clouded by oddities. She approached me, her gaze intense and piercing. "You're drawn to it too, aren't you?" "The pond," she said, her voice a raspy whisper. I nodded, unable to find words. "Beware, child," she continued, "for it shows us not what lies above, but what lurks below. It's a window, not a mirror." Her words were cryptic, leaving me more confused than enlightened. But one thing was clear: she knew something about the pond, something born of experience and fear. The need for answers grew within me, an insatiable hunger. That's when I decided to take a more daring step. My friend Jamie, who had been following my growing obsession with a mix of amusement and concern, agreed to help. We planned to camp near the pond overnight, to observe it after dark. Maybe, just maybe, the night would reveal its secrets. The day of our overnight vigil, we arrived armed with camping gear, flashlights, and a digital camera. The pond, bathed in the light of the setting sun, was a vision of eerie beauty. We set up our tent at a safe distance from the water's edge, anticipation and apprehension mingling in the cool evening air. As night fell, the pond began to change. The stars in its reflection grew brighter, more pronounced, as if coming to life. The air around us grew colder, and a faint, almost imperceptible sound, like whispers, began to emanate from the direction of the water. Jamie, usually the skeptic, was silent, his eyes fixed on the shimmering surface. We watched, transfixed, as the starry reflection began to swirl and dance, forming patterns that made no logical sense, yet held a mesmerizing, otherworldly beauty. It was then that things took a turn for the unimaginable. Jamie, his face a mask of entranced wonder, started to walk towards the pond, drawn by some unseen force. I reached out, trying to hold him back, but it was as if he was under a spell. "Jamie, no," I shouted, my voice laced with panic. But it was too late. He reached the water's edge and stepped in. For a moment, he stood there, the stars reflecting in his white, unseeing eyes. Then, with a soundless splash, he vanished beneath the surface, leaving nothing but a few ripples to mark where he had been. The pond returned to a still, serene state, as if nothing had happened. But Jamie was gone, swallowed by the starlit depths. The night air was still, the silence oppressive. I stood frozen, staring at the spot where Jamie had disappeared, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. The pond, once an object of fascination, now felt like a malevolent presence, its calm surface hiding a sinister secret. Panic set in. I fumbled with my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. When the operator answered, I realized the futility of what I was about to say. My friend, he just walked into the pond and vanished. The words sounded absurd even to my own ears. The police arrived within minutes that felt like hours. I recounted the events, my voice breaking, the disbelief in the officers' eyes, mirroring my own internal turmoil. They searched the pond, but found no trace of Jamie. No ripples, no disturbance in the water's unnaturally clear surface. The following days were a blur of questioning and incredulous looks. The town buzzed with whispers about the incident at the pond, but no one seemed willing to confront its eerie nature. It was as if a collective denial had settled over Greenwood, a refusal to acknowledge the darkness lurking beneath the surface of their idyllic town. In the midst of this, Mrs. Thorne vanished. I went to her house seeking answers, but found only an empty home and a note left on her table. Her handwriting was shaky, the message cryptic. The stars are not just lights in the sky, they are eyes, watching, waiting. Beware the pond, for it is their gateway. Do not let curiosity lead you astray, as it did me long ago. Her words haunted me, a riddle wrapped in a warning. I became obsessed, digging deeper into the town's history, searching for any clues that might explain the pond's nature. I scoured old books, interviewed longtime residents, and spent countless hours at the pond's edge, watching the water and the stars within. My research led me to ancient folklore and astronomical theories, tales of celestial beings and parallel worlds. The more I read, the more I became convinced that the pond was more than just a body of water. It was a portal, a connection to something ancient and otherworldly. The realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. I was on the brink of uncovering a truth that had eluded others for decades, a secret that the pond had held since its mysterious appearance. But with each step closer to understanding, I felt the weight of isolation, the burden of a knowledge that set me apart from everyone else. I knew that I had to be cautious, to avoid the fate that had befallen Jamie and, perhaps, Mrs. Thorne. But the pond's call was irresistible, a siren song that promised answers yet threatened oblivion. And so, I kept my vigil, watching the stars in the water, listening to the whispers of the night, waiting for the moment when the truth would reveal itself. In the wake of Jamie's disappearance, life in Greenwood carried on with a veneer of normalcy, but beneath the surface, there was a palpable shift. The police eventually concluded their investigation, labeling it an unfortunate accident, a tragic case of a young man slipping into the pond and presumably drowning. But I knew the truth was far more complex, more terrifying. The townspeople avoided the pond now, their previous fascination replaced by wary avoidance. Rumors swirled, whispers of curses and haunted waters, but no one dared to speak openly about it. The pond had become a scar in the landscape of our town, a beautiful but frightening reminder of the unknown. Mrs. Thorne's disappearance added another layer of mystery to the whole affair. Her note had spoken of stars and gateways, of curiosity and caution. I tried to piece together her warning with the little I knew, but each answer only led to more questions. The absence of concrete evidence made my search feel like grasping at shadows. Despite the growing fear and the warnings, I couldn't stay away from the pond. I visited it often, always alone, drawn by a need to understand what had happened to Jamie, and what lay beneath those tranquil waters. I would sit for hours, staring into the starry reflection, my mind a whirlpool of theories and possibilities. My obsession with the pond began to take a toll. Sleep became elusive, my nights filled with dreams of dark waters and distant stars. My days were consumed with research, my thoughts constantly circling back to the pond. Friends and family expressed concern, but I brushed them off, too deep in my quest for answers. It was during one of my nightly vigils that I noticed a change. The pond's surface began to ripple, not from any breeze or external force, but as if something from within was stirring. The stars in the reflection shimmered, their light flickering like a signal. I held my breath, a mix of fear and anticipation gripping me. The water calmed, and the stars returned to their usual, serene state. But something had shifted. I felt it in the air, a charge, a whisper of something imminent. The pond was no longer just a passive observer, it was an active participant in the events unfolding. I left the pond that night with a sense of unease, the feeling that I was on the cusp of something momentous, something that could unravel the fabric of what I knew to be real. The pond had revealed a glimpse of its power, and I knew that the final answers I sought were close. In the days that followed, I pored over my notes, my research, trying to connect the dots. The folklore, Mrs. Thorne's warning, the accounts of the pond's appearance, and Jamie's disappearance, they were all pieces of a puzzle that I was desperately trying to solve. I realized that the pond was not just a natural anomaly, it was a gateway, a bridge between our world and something else, something beyond human comprehension. But what lay on the other side, and what it wanted, remained a mystery. As I continued my watch, a sense of isolation enveloped me. I was the keeper of a secret too vast and terrifying to share, a lone sentinel standing guard over a threshold between realities. The pond, with its starlit depths, had become a part of me, a haunting presence that I could neither embrace nor escape. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, my life became inextricably linked to the pond. The allure of its mysteries, the haunting beauty of its starlit waters, kept me tethered to its shores. I continued to watch, to wait, to seek understanding in the unfathomable depths of the pond. I documented everything. The patterns of the stars, the changes in the water, the whispers of the wind. My room became a shrine to my obsession, walls covered with maps of the stars, notes on celestial phenomena, and photos of the pond under different conditions. Yet, despite my relentless pursuit of the truth, the pond remained an enigma. The more I learned, the more I realized how little I truly understood. The pond was a puzzle with pieces scattered across time and space, a cosmic mystery that perhaps was never meant to be solved. In this journey, I had lost much. Friends drifted away, unable to understand my fixation. My family watched me with concern, unsure how to bridge the gap my obsession had created. And Jamie's absence was a constant ache, a reminder of the cost of delving too deep into the unknown. But I couldn't turn away. The pond had become a part of me, its mysteries echoing the questions that had always lingered in my mind about the universe and our place in it. One night, as I sat by the pond, the air still, the stars above mirrored perfectly in the water below, I made a recording. It was a message, a warning, perhaps a legacy of what I had discovered and what I had lost. I spoke of the pond, of its mysteries, of the dangers it posed, and of the insatiable curiosity that drove me to its edge. As I finished, the pond began to stir. The stars in the reflection shimmered, and for a moment, I thought I saw something move beneath the surface, a shadow, a form too vast and strange to belong to our world. I knew then that the pond was more than just a gateway, it was a sentient entity, ancient and powerful, watching us as we watched the stars. It was a keeper of secrets, of truths too vast for human minds to comprehend. The recording captured my final words, a message to anyone who might find it, to tread carefully in their search for understanding, to respect the mysteries that lie beyond our grasp. I left the pond that night with a heavy heart. The stars above seemed to watch me go, their light a silent farewell. I knew I would return, drawn back by the unanswered questions and the lure of the unknown. But I also knew that some mysteries were best left unexplored, their secrets preserved in the depths of starlit waters. The pond remains, a beautiful enigma, its reflection a constant invitation to the curious and the brave. But its true nature, its purpose, its origins, remain hidden, whispered in the ripples of the water and the rustling of the leaves. And somewhere, in the space between the stars, the truth waits, silent and eternal, echoing in this starlit pond of greenwood.